When I was 8 years old, my parents cruelly threw me out of the house because I forgot to lock the back door. My mom screamed, "Do you want us to get robbed?" I slept in a park shivering until my aunt found me hiding under a slide. Hours later, police knocked on her door. My parents had reported me missing to dodge charges. I was 8 years old when I learned that love, at least in my family, was conditional. It happened on a cold November night in Chicago. The kind of night where the wind slips through the cracks in the windows and the cold settles into your bones. I had been sitting at the kitchen table, finishing up my math homework, when my mom, Marla, called me from the living room. "Owen," she said sharply, "did you lock the back door?" I looked up from my notebook, my mind still tangled in numbers. The back door? I had taken the trash out earlier, but had I locked it? I tried to replay the moment in my head. The way the door creaked as I pulled it open, the cold air biting my skin, but I couldn't remember if I turned the lock. I think so, I said hesitantly. "You think so?" My mom's voice had an edge to it now. I swallowed hard. Then my dad, Robert, chimed in from his recliner. "Jesus Christ, Owen, do you want us to get robbed?" His voice was flat, but I could feel the anger brewing beneath it. My stomach twisted. "No, I didn't mean to forget," I said quickly, my voice shrinking. But my mom was already on her feet. She stomped to the kitchen and yanked the back door open. The wind howled through the house, sending a shiver down my spine. The door was unlocked. My breath caught in my throat. "You little idiot," she spat, turning to face me. Her dark eyes burned with fury. "You left the goddamn door unlocked? What the HLL is wrong with you?" I didn't mean to," I stammered. "I just forgot." "You forgot," she shrieked. "So what? A bunch of thieves could have waltzed right in here and stolen everything we own? Maybe even let us." My dad scoffed from the recliner. "Yeah, real responsible, kid. Maybe we should just start leaving you outside too." I opened my mouth to protest, but before I could say anything, my mom marched toward me. Her hand flew up, and smack. The slap landed hard across my cheek. A sharp, stinging heat spread over my skin. I tasted salt and metal, realizing I had bitten my tongue. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "Get out," she said suddenly. I blinked. What? "You heard her," my dad said, not even looking up from the TV. "You want to act careless? Then you can go sleep outside like a stray dog. Maybe then you'll learn responsibility." My breath came in short gasps. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked from my mom to my dad, searching for any sign that this was a joke. But their faces were hard, unmoving. "You're serious?" My voice cracked. "Get out," my mom repeated, her voice cold. I hesitated too long. She grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the door. I stumbled, my socked feet slipping against the tile. She threw the door open and shoved me out onto the porch. The freezing air hit me like a slap to the face. "Mom, please, it's cold." The door slammed shut. Then, click, she locked it. I stood there, shivering in my thin pajamas. My breath came out in small white clouds in the cold night air. My bare feet burned against the concrete. I turned and pounded on the door. "Mom? Dad?" My voice was already shaking. "Please, I won't forget again. I promise. Nothing." I banged harder. "Mom." The porch light flicked off. Darkness swallowed me whole. I stared at the door, my chest rising and falling too fast. They really locked me out. They really did it. I bit my lip hard, trying to stop the tears. I didn't want to cry. Crying would make it worse. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to think. Where could I go? What could I do? The street was empty. The wind rattled the bare branches of the trees lining the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do, so I walked. The cold was unbearable. The further I walked, the more my body ached from it. My fingers were stiff. My toes were numb. Every step felt heavier, my body sluggish. After what felt like forever, I reached Harrison Park. I had been here a million times before, but at night, it looked different. The bright colors of the playground were dull under the streetlights. The metal slides glistened with frost. I crawled under the slide and curled up into a ball. The wind still reached me, but it was a little better. I was so cold. So cold. I don't know how long I lay there, shivering, before I heard footsteps. I squeezed my eyes shut. If it was someone bad, someone like what my mom had screamed about, maybe if I stayed still, they wouldn't see me. "Owen." I knew that voice. I peeked out from under the slide. Liza stood there, her dark curls messy from sleep. She was wearing pajama pants and a hoodie, her breath coming out in little white clouds. She was 14, 6 years older than me, but she had always looked out for me. Her face was tight with worry. "What the HLL are you doing out here?" I couldn't hold it in anymore. My face crumpled, and the tears spilled over. "They locked me out," I whispered. Her eyes widened. She took a shaky breath, then muttered, "Those aholies." She grabbed my arm, gently but firmly. "Come on, you're staying with us." I didn't fight her. I was too tired, too cold. She led me through the quiet streets, her hand gripping mine tightly. When we reached her house, she didn't even hesitate. She opened the door and pulled me inside. The warmth hit me instantly. My whole body shook from the sudden change in temperature. Liza didn't say anything. She just grabbed an old blanket from the couch and wrapped it around me. Sit, she ordered. I obeyed without question. She disappeared down the hallway, and a minute later, she came back with her mom, my Aunt June. Aunt June took one look at me, and her face turned pale. Owen, she breathed. What happened? I opened my mouth to speak, but all that came out was a sob. That's when she knelt down and pulled me into a hug. A real hug, warm and safe. And for the first time that night, I felt like I wasn't alone. Aunt June held me for a long time, rubbing my back as I tried to stop shaking. I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or from everything that had happened. Probably both. Liza sat next to me on the couch, her jaw tight, her hands clenched into fists. I had never seen her this mad before. Aunt June pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. Her face was softer now, filled with something I hadn't seen in my own parents' faces in a long time. Concern. Owen, sweetheart, she said, her voice calm but firm. Tell me exactly what happened. I swallowed hard. My throat burned from holding back tears. I forgot to lock the back door, I mumbled. Aunt June frowned. Okay, Aunt. I shifted in my seat, gripping the blanket tighter. Mom got mad. She said I could have gotten us robbed. Then she told me to get out. My voice got smaller. She locked the door and turned off the light. Aunt June's nostrils flared. She what? I flinched at the anger in her voice. Not because I was scared of her. Aunt June never yelled at me, but because I wasn't used to anyone getting angry for me. She stood up so fast that the couch creaked. That's it. I'm calling them. Liza shot up from her seat. Mom, no. You know they'll just lie. They'll say they didn't do anything. Aunt June's face was set like stone. They left an 8-year-old out in the cold, Liza. I don't give a damn what excuses they come up with. This is not okay. I shrank into myself. They're gonna be mad, I whispered. Aunt June's face softened again, but her voice didn't lose its edge. Let them be mad. I don't care. No child deserves to be treated like this. She walked into the kitchen and grabbed the phone off the counter. I could hear the sharp beeps as she dialed. Liza sat back down next to me. You're safe here, okay? I nodded, but my stomach was still twisted into knots. Then I heard Aunt June's voice change. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Liza, and I turned toward the kitchen. Aunt June pinched the bridge of her nose, her body tense. No, Marla, I did not kidnap your son. You threw him out like garbage, and now you want to act like the victim? My stomach dropped. I suddenly felt sick. I could hear my mother's voice through the phone, shrill and defensive, but I couldn't make out the words. Aunt June's grip tightened on the phone. Oh, bullshit, she snapped. You reported him missing? After you locked him out? You have some damn nerve, Marla. I stared at the floor, my hands gripping the blanket so hard my fingers ached. Liza was practically vibrating with rage. Are you kidding me? She muttered. They don't even want you. But now that someone else is taking care of you, they're playing the victim? Aunt June let out a bitter laugh. Oh, trust me, I know exactly what they're doing. She sighed, rubbing her temple. Yeah, well, guess what? He's not coming back there tonight. Or ever, if I have anything to say about it. You can explain yourselves to the police. Then she hung up. Just like that. No goodbye. No second chances. The silence afterward was thick. Aunt June turned back to me, her face still burning with anger, but her voice was softer when she spoke. The cops are coming. My heart lurched. Am I in trouble? Aunt June's eyes filled with something that looked like heartbreak. Oh, honey, no. You didn't do anything wrong. I wanted to believe that, but I wasn't sure if I did. Minutes passed. Then, a knock at the door. Liza tensed. Aunt June took a deep breath and walked over. When she opened the door, I could see the 2 police officers standing there. And behind them, my parents. My mom's face was red and blotchy, as if she'd been crying. But the moment she saw me, her expression hardened. Oh, thank God, she said, stepping forward like she was about to grab me. I flinched. Aunt June stepped between us so fast that my mom stopped in her tracks. No, she said sharply. You don't get to do this. The officer in front cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, we received a report about your son being left outside. He turned toward me. Owen, are you okay? I nodded quickly, but I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. My mom folded her arms. This is ridiculous, she said. He ran away. I jerked my head up. I didn't. Yes, you did, she snapped. You left after I told you to go to your room. And now you're making up some story because you don't want to get in trouble. Aunt June let out a sharp laugh. Oh, is that the story we're going with now? It's the truth, my dad said, finally speaking. His face was blank, but his tone was sharp. We were worried sick. Liza shot up from the couch. Bullshit. Liza, Aunt June warned, but I could tell she wasn't really mad. The officer shifted awkwardly. Look, we just need to clarify some things. Owen, can you tell me exactly what happened tonight? I hesitated. My parents were right there. Their eyes bore into me like daggers. Aunt June crouched down, so she was eye level with me. It's okay, she murmured. Tell the truth. I swallowed hard, then forced the words out. I took out the trash, I said. My voice was quiet, but steady. I forgot to lock the back door. When my mom found out, she got really mad and she hit me. I touched my cheek without thinking. It still stung. Then she told me to leave. She locked the door behind me. The officer's face was unreadable. He turned to my parents. Is that true? Of course not, my mom hissed. I told you he's lying. Aunt June threw her hands up. Jesus Christ, Marla, the kid slept in a park. Who do you think is buying this crap? The officer sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. All right, he said finally. We'll need to continue this discussion at the station. My mom's face paled. What? You reported him missing, the officer said. But based on what we're hearing, that might not have been an accurate report. You can't be serious, my dad scoffed. This is ridiculous. The officer ignored him. He turned to Aunt June. For now, Owen will stay here. We'll be in touch soon regarding next steps. Aunt June nodded. That's fine. And just like that, the officers led my parents away. My mom turned back once, her face twisted in rage. This isn't over, she hissed. Aunt June just smiled coldly. Oh, I know. Then the door closed. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt safe. The house was silent after the door shut. I could still hear my mom's voice in my head, hissing, this isn't over. Aunt June let out a long breath, like she had been holding it the whole time. She turned back to me, her face still tight with anger, but her eyes soft. You okay? She asked. I didn't know how to answer. My whole body felt like it was still bracing for impact, like at any second my parents would come bursting through the door, dragging me back with them. I just nodded. Aunt June sighed and sat down next to me. She rubbed her hands over her face, then reached over and gently smoothed down my hair. You're safe here, she said, as if she could read my thoughts. Liza plopped down on the other side of me, shaking her head. I can't believe them. They just lied right to the cops' faces like it was nothing. Aunt June scoffed. Of course they did. They care more about how they look than about Owen. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I didn't want to cry anymore. Aunt June rubbed her temple. Look, it's late. We'll figure out what happens next tomorrow. She gave me a small, reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. For now, you need to rest, kiddo. I nodded again, though I wasn't sure I could sleep. My body was exhausted, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I still felt like this was all temporary, like at any moment my parents were going to show up again and drag me back. Come on, Liza said, standing up. You can sleep in my room. I followed her down the hallway, gripping the blanket Aunt June had given me. Liza's room was small but warm, with posters of bands on the walls and books stacked on her desk. She grabbed an extra pillow from her bed and tossed it on the floor. You can sleep here, she said. I looked at the floor, then back at her. I can take the couch. Liza rolled her eyes. Shut up and take the bed. I hesitated. She crossed her arms. Owen, you literally slept under a slide last night. You're taking the damn bed. Something about the way she said it made my chest feel warm. I nodded and crawled into the bed. It smelled like laundry detergent and a little like her coconut shampoo. It was warm and it was safe, and that was all that mattered. Liza turned off the light and climbed into her sleeping bag on the floor. Don't worry, she said into the darkness. Even if they try something, Mom's not going to let them take you back. I wanted to believe her, but I wasn't sure if I did. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices. I sat up, my heart pounding before I even knew why. Then I remembered. For a second, I had forgotten where I was. The door was cracked open, and I could hear Aunt June talking to someone in the living room. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could. Liza was still asleep, her arm draped over her face, snoring softly. I crept out into the hallway. Aunt June was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in her hand. Across from her was a woman I didn't recognize. She was dressed in a neat, navy blue blouse and held a notepad in her lap. When Aunt June saw me, she gave me a reassuring smile. Morning, sweetheart. The woman turned around. She had kind eyes, but they were sharp, too, like she noticed everything. Hi, Owen, she said. My name's Miss Carter. I work with Child Services. My stomach dropped. I looked at Aunt June, panic rising in my chest. Aunt June reached out and squeezed my hand. It's okay. She just wants to talk. I wasn't so sure. Miss Carter smiled. I know this is probably scary, but I just want to ask you a few questions. Is that all right? I hesitated, then nodded. She gestured to the chair across from her. Go ahead and sit down. I did. My hands were clenched in my lap. She glanced at her notepad. Can you tell me a little about last night? What happened after you left your house? I swallowed hard. I walked to the park. It was really cold, so I hid under the slide. Her expression didn't change, but I saw the way her hand tightened on her pen. And before that, she asked gently, when your mom told you to leave, how did she say it? I bit my lip. She was mad. She yelled a lot. She said I was stupid and that I was going to get us robbed. Then she told me to get out. Miss Carter wrote something down. And your dad? I hesitated. He didn't stop her. Aunt June let out a sharp breath through her nose, but she didn't say anything. Miss Carter nodded. Has anything like this happened before? I looked down at my lap. My hands were clenched so tight my nails were digging into my palms. Yeah, I whispered. but never this bad. Her pen scratched against the paper. Can you tell me more about that? I hesitated. My parents' voices echoed in my head. You're making things up. You always exaggerate. No one's going to believe you. I felt sick. Aunt June squeezed my hand under the table. I took a shaky breath. Sometimes when I mess up, she gets really mad, I admitted. She yells. Sometimes she hits me. I hesitated, then added, Dad just lets her. Miss Carter didn't react, but I saw the way her shoulders tensed. She nodded and wrote a few more things down. Then she set her pen down and looked at me carefully. Owen, she said gently, how would you feel about staying here with your aunt for a while? I froze. My heart was racing. Aunt June's grip on my hand tightened. Miss Carter leaned forward slightly. I can't promise anything yet, but we're going to investigate this, and if it turns out your parents have been neglectful or obsessive, we'll make sure you have somewhere safe to stay. Somewhere safe. I swallowed hard and nodded. Miss Carter smiled. Okay, that's all I need for now. She stood up and turned to Aunt June. I'll be in touch soon. Aunt June walked her to the door. When the door closed behind her, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Aunt June turned to me. You did great, kiddo. I didn't feel like I did. I just felt tired. I glanced at the clock. It was still early. What happens now? I asked. Aunt June sighed. Now. She sat back down, sipping her coffee. Now we wait. And so we waited. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over yet. The waiting was the worst part. For the next few days, I felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for something to happen. I didn't know if my parents would show up, if the police would come back, if someone was going to take me away from Aunt June's house. Every time the phone rang or there was a knock at the door, my whole body tensed. Aunt June tried to act normal, like everything was fine, but I could tell she was just as on edge. Liza wasn't even trying to hide how pissed off she was. Did you hear what Mom said on the phone earlier? She asked one afternoon while we were sitting in her room. Dad called her. I shook my head. He's mad at her, she said, rolling her eyes. Not at your parents. At her, for getting involved. I frowned. Why? Because he's a coward, she muttered. And he doesn't want to deal with the drama. I didn't know what to say to that. I had always liked Uncle Dave. He was quiet, but he was nice to me. I had never thought of him as someone who avoided problems. But then again, I had never been a problem before. At least, not his problem. Liza shook her head. Whatever. He can be mad all he wants. Mom's not backing down. I wanted to believe her. But a part of me was still terrified that all of this was temporary. That I would wake up one morning and it would all be over. Aunt June would tell me I had to go back. My parents would be standing at the door, pretending none of this had ever happened. And the worst part? If that happened, I wouldn't be able to stop it. The first time Aunt June had a real meeting with child services, I wasn't allowed to be in the room. You and Liza can go hang out upstairs, she said. I'll let you know what happens after. I wanted to argue. I wanted to be there, to know what was going on. But I didn't say anything. Instead, I went upstairs with Liza. We sat in her room with the door cracked open, listening. We couldn't hear everything, but we caught bits and pieces. History of neglect. Owen's statements. Long-term placement. I turned to Liza. What does long-term placement mean? I whispered. She hesitated, then said, I think it means they're deciding where you should live. My stomach twisted. Liza must have seen the panic on my face, because she quickly added, but don't freak out. You know Mom's not going to let them send you back. I wanted to believe that, but I also knew how things worked. My parents were still my legal guardians. They still had power over me, and that thought scared me more than anything. That night, I had my first nightmare about going back. I was standing in front of my old house, but something felt off. The sky was dark, the air was thick, like the whole world was holding its breath. The door swung open, and my mom was standing there. Her face was twisted into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Come on in, sweetheart, she said. My feet wouldn't move, but suddenly, I wasn't in control anymore. I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. The warmth of Aunt June's house disappeared. The air felt heavy, suffocating. I turned around, but the door was gone. My dad was in his chair, staring at the TV, like I wasn't even there. My mom was still smiling. Why would you ever leave us? She cooed, stepping closer. I tried to back away, but my feet were frozen to the floor. You hurt us, Owen, she said, tilting her head. You made up those terrible lies about us. But don't worry. Her fingers dug into my shoulders. We forgive you. I woke up gasping. The room was dark. For a second, I didn't know where I was. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Then I felt the blanket wrapped around me. I saw the posters on the wall, the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Liza's room. Aunt June's house. I was safe. I forced myself to take deep breaths. It was just a dream. But no matter how hard I tried to tell myself that, I still didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, Aunt June sat me down at the kitchen table. She looked tired. I couldn't tell if it was from the meeting with child services or something else, but there was something in her expression that made my stomach drop. What's wrong? I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. They want to have a meeting with your parents. My whole body went cold. No, I blurted out. I don't want to see them. You won't, she said quickly. Not yet. This is just a meeting between them and child services. But, she trailed off. But what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She ran a hand through her hair. Owen, I need to be honest with you. I swallowed hard. Okay. She took a deep breath. They're going to fight for custody. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. But why? I stammered. They don't even want me. Aunt June's face hardened. They don't want to lose you, she said bitterly. It's not about love, Owen. It's about control. They don't like looking like the bad guys. And if they lose custody, it proves they are. I felt sick. What's going to happen? I asked. Aunt June exhaled. We're going to fight it. Do you think we'll win? She hesitated. Just for a second. That second was enough. I looked down at my hands. I knew what that meant. No guarantees. I might have to go back. Liza stormed into the kitchen. This is bullshit, she shouted. Liza, no, Mom. They don't even like him. Why are they fighting for him now? Because they don't want to be the bad guys, Aunt June said again, her voice tired. And because, legally, they can. Liza turned to me. If you have to go back, run away again, she said fiercely. I don't care. I'll come get you myself. Liza, Aunt June warned. No, he shouldn't have to go back. I felt a lump rise in my throat. She was right. I shouldn't have to go back. But that didn't mean I wouldn't. And that was the worst part. The court hearing was scheduled for the following week. I wasn't allowed to be in the room. I spent the whole day sitting on Aunt June's couch, staring at the clock, feeling like time was moving too fast and too slow at the same time. Every time I heard a car outside, my stomach clenched. When the front door finally opened, I jumped to my feet. Aunt June walked in. Her face was unreadable. I held my breath. Then she looked at me, and I knew. Something had gone wrong. I took a step back. What happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Aunt June let out a slow, shaky breath. And then she said the words that made my entire world collapse. They won. I felt the world tilt under me. They won. The words echoed in my head, hollow and distant, like they weren't real. Like if I just stood still long enough, they would disappear. But they didn't. Aunt June looked furious, but there was something else in her face, too. Something I had never seen before. Defeat. I felt my stomach drop. I have to go back. My voice came out small. Aunt June exhaled sharply, rubbing her temple. Not yet, she said. We have a few days before they can legally take you back. But the judge ruled in their favor. Unless something changes, you're going home. The word home felt like a joke. Liza kicked the leg of the kitchen chair so hard it scraped against the floor. This is bullshit, she shouted. Aunt June didn't even scold her for cursing. She just nodded. Yeah, it is. I couldn't breathe. My parents had won. I had told the truth. I had done everything right. And none of it mattered. The system was on their side. Because they were my parents. Because I was just a kid. Because, to the judge, it didn't matter if my mom locked me out in the cold or if my dad never cared. Blood was blood. And blood won. I was going back to them. Back to a house where I wasn't wanted. Where I would never feel safe again. Aunt June must have seen something in my face because she crouched down and gripped my arms. Listen to me, she said. We're not giving up. We will fix this. How? My voice cracked. They won. Aunt June's jaw tightened. Then we'll make them lose. Liza's eyes narrowed. You have a plan, don't you? Aunt June's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Not yet, she admitted. But give me one night. And that's when I realized Aunt June wasn't defeated. She was angry. And when Aunt June was angry, she got smart. I didn't know what she was planning. But I knew one thing. My parents weren't going to win for long. The next morning, Aunt June sat me down at the table with a determined look in her eye. Do you trust me? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. Good, she said. Because this is going to get messy. She pulled out a notebook filled with scribbled notes, highlighted papers, and printed emails. I spent all night looking through legal documents, she said. Turns out, your parents may have won custody, but they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I frowned. What do you mean? Aunt June smirked. They fought for custody to save their reputation. But guess what? That means child services will be watching everything they do. And if they mess up, even once, we can take them down for good. Liza grinned. Oh, this is going to be fun. Not fun, Aunt June corrected. But justice. Then she looked at me seriously. Owen, I need you to be brave. You're going to have to go back, for a little while. I stiffened. But not forever, she added quickly. You just need to let them show their true colors. I hesitated. What if they don't? Aunt June snorted. They will. They always do. And she was right. The first night back was HLL. The moment I stepped into the house, it felt like the air had been sked out of my lungs. It smelled the same, stale coffee, cheap candles, and something slightly rotten underneath, like food that had been left out too long. But I wasn't the same. I saw everything differently now. I saw the way my dad didn't even look at me when I walked in. I saw the way my mom's smile was too tight, her voice too fake. I saw the way the house felt more like a cage than a home. For the first few days, they tried to act normal. My mom made dinner. My dad actually asked me about school. They were playing the role of perfect parents. But I knew it wouldn't last. And I was right. The mask slipped quickly. It started small, little digs, little insults. You should be grateful we even fought for you. After all the trouble you caused, you should be thanking us. Then the yelling started again. Then the rules got stricter. Then the threats. They thought they had won. But what they didn't know, I was documenting everything. Every insult. Every outburst. Every time they said something cruel. Every time they threw something. Every time my mom raised a hand like she wanted to hit me, but stopped at the last second. I wrote it all down. I saved texts. I even recorded conversations. Aunt June had given me a cheap little recorder that I hid in my pocket. And after 2 weeks, we had enough. The day everything fell apart was the best day of my life. Aunt June walked into child services with a folder of evidence. Recordings, screenshots, notes, a complete, undeniable record of why my parents weren't fit to take care of a pet rock, let alone a child. When child services showed up at my house that afternoon, my mom lost it. She screamed at them. She called Aunt June every name in the book. She begged. Then she threatened. None of it worked. Because the truth was finally out. And this time, the law was on my side. By the end of the week, I was officially placed in Aunt June's custody. For good. I never saw my parents again after that. Not really. They tried to fight it at first, but eventually, they stopped. They moved out of Chicago a year later. I don't know where they went. I don't care. Because I had something better. Aunt June. Liza. A real family. A real home. And as I sat on Aunt June's porch a year later, watching the sun set over the city, I realized something. I had won. And they had lost. Not because I hurt them. Not because I got revenge in the way they expected. But because I was happy. And that was the one thing they could never take from me.